Have you ever felt a presence so real, you felt like it was about to come out from the dark and grab you? Today we have 3 chilling stories that will help you relive those feelings. From a family suffering from terrifying events to a boy's eerie walk home, and lastly a trip to a boathouse 2 camp counselors won't forget. Remember, in each one of our videos, 2 of our stories are just a figment of our imagination, though one is hauntingly true. If you enjoy our stories, please remember to subscribe so you never miss a tale. Now, let's begin. Story 1, A Tale of the Unseen. It all began so subtly, almost imperceptibly. Our house, nestled in the heart of Enfield, had always been a sanctuary for my family and me. However, that tranquility was about to be shattered. It started with the faintest knocks and bangs, as though someone or something was trapped within the very walls of our home. At first, we dismissed it as the house settling, the creaks and groans of an old building. But soon the disturbances became more pronounced, more deliberate. I remember the unease settling over us, the way we would exchange nervous glances whenever the knocks sounded. The atmosphere in the house grew tense, charged with a kind of electric anticipation. My siblings and I would huddle together at night, the safety of our beds no longer a guarantee against the unknown forces at play. My mom tried her best to calm our fears, but I could see the worry etched in her eyes, hear the strain in her voice as she reassured us. The subtle disturbances were just the beginning, the prelude to a symphony of terror that would envelop our lives. The knocks became louder, more insistent, as if demanding our attention, our acknowledgement of the presence that had infiltrated our home. And then, just as we were grappling with this unseen entity, the physical manifestations began. Furniture moved of its own accord. Toys propelled themselves across the room. Objects levitated in midair, only to be hurled against the walls with violent force. The house was alive with an energy we could not comprehend, a malevolent force that seemed focused on us, especially on me. The nights were the worst. I could feel the eyes on me, the weight of an unseen gaze piercing through the darkness. The air around me would grow heavy, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. And then it would happen. The levitations. I would be lifted from my bed, my body suspended in midair by hands I could not see. I could hear my siblings' terrified screams, feel my mom's desperate grasp as she tried to pull me back down. But the force was too strong, the entity too powerful. I was a puppet on invisible strings, my movements dictated by the whims of the unseen. And then there was the voice. A voice that was not my own, that emerged from deep within me, rough and guttural. It identified itself as Bill Wilkins, a man who had once lived and died in our house. The voice recounted tales of his life, of his death, details that we later verified to be disturbingly accurate. The arrival of the investigators brought a mix of relief and trepidation. They delved into the mysteries of our haunted home, documenting the phenomena, seeking answers to the unexplainable. Their presence attracted attention, the media descended, and with them came the skeptics, the accusations, the disbelief. Yet through it all, the disturbances continued, the haunting persisted. They call it a poltergeist, and it has become a part of our lives, a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of our existence. I don't know why it's here, or why it's picked me. I just want it to go away. Story 2, The Chase. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I was walking home from a friend's house and turned into the start of the subdivision I lived in. The entrance to my neighborhood was enveloped by a quarter-mile of dense woods on either side, creating an isolated atmosphere. I lived in a big neighborhood, and the road leading in was usually bustling with people walking. However, today it was eerily empty. I had my earbuds in, listening to music and texting friends to pass by the time. About a minute into my walk, I noticed him, a tall figure about 300 feet away, clad in a black jacket and baseball cap, walking towards me. Again, this was normally a busy route, and he seemed like an ordinary guy. I continued on, walking, texting, and picking a new song to listen to. However, when I looked up just 10 to 15 seconds later, the man had vanished. A chill ran down my spine. There were no cars, no side paths, just the dense woods and the long road. The sudden disappearance of the man had me on edge. There wasn't any reason for him to have just vanished. Upon reaching the spot where I last saw him, I paused my music and pocketed my phone. I looked into the woods, hoping to find an uneventful view. It was like a scene out of my nightmares when I heard the leaves crunching and a voice that followed. "Hey," it called out. I turned to see the man emerging from the woods behind me. The dim light revealed his scruffy beard, sharp features, and an unsettling glint in his eyes. "Why don't you just stay right there for a second?" the man said, his steps slow but deliberate. "I want to..." But I didn't wait to hear the rest. Adrenaline pumping, I sprinted down the road, not daring to look back until the first house came into view. I could hear the man's footsteps pounding behind me. They were getting closer. He was gaining on me. He was probably only feet behind me when I reached the first house in my neighborhood. I ran through their front yard and frantically rang the doorbell, praying someone would answer immediately. I glanced back at the sidewalk and saw the man lingering at the edge of the woods, partially concealed by the trees. The door swung open to reveal a confused woman, questions in her eyes. Without waiting for an invitation, I rushed inside before quickly explaining the terrifying encounter. The woman, alarmed, immediately called the police, but despite a thorough search, no trace of the mysterious man was found. The incident left the neighborhood in unease, and me with a story I would never forget. It's been a few months since the event, and there hasn't been any incident since, but I always look at the woods when I get to that spot on the sidewalk where he came out. My adrenaline kicks in, as though I can hear the crunching of leaves and see his outline coming out from the woods. Story 3: The Boathouse. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow on the tranquil lake, Dave and I, the last remaining camp counselors, were tasked with the final duty of the summer, securing the equipment in the old boathouse across the water. The 2-week camping period had come to an end, and the laughter of the campers was replaced by the serene sounds of nature preparing for the night. The boathouse had always been the subject of campfire ghost stories, tales of strange noises, and flickering lights enough to send shivers down the spines of even the bravest campers. Dave, ever the skeptic, brushed off the stories with a laugh, while I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease as we loaded the motorboat with the remaining gear. The boat's engine hummed to life, breaking the silence of the approaching dusk, and we made our way across the calm waters. The boathouse, a weathered structure of wood and rusted metal, loomed ahead, its shadows dancing on the water's surface. I could feel the stories of the haunted boathouse creeping into my thoughts, but I shook them off, focusing on the task at hand. As we docked and began unloading the equipment, the atmosphere around the boathouse felt eerily still. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of the water and the creaking of the old wooden planks beneath our feet. Dave tried to spook me with sudden noises and shadowy movements, but I was determined not to let the tales get to me. The wind began to pick up, causing the old boathouse to creak ominously, adding an eerie soundtrack to our already tense atmosphere. Suddenly, we felt a series of knocks from beneath the dock, forceful and rhythmic, vibrating through the soles of our shoes. Dave and I exchanged uneasy glances, the tales of the haunted boathouse rushing back into our minds. With a deep breath, we unlocked the door to the boathouse only to find the interior in disarray. Equipment was scattered as though someone or something had been inside just hours after we had neatly arranged everything. A chill ran down my spine. We were the only ones with the key, and the lock had been securely fastened. On edge, we hurriedly rearranged the disturbed equipment and stowed away what we had brought. The knocks beneath the dock grew louder, more insistent, as if urging us to leave. With the last piece of gear in place, we closed the boathouse doors and secured the padlock, eager to put distance between us and the unsettling structure. No sooner had we turned our backs than a crashing sound echoed from the deck. Whirling around, we found the once-locked padlock lying open on the ground. Confusion and fear played across Dave's face, mirroring my own feelings. We had locked the door. We were sure of it. I grabbed the lock, closed it tight, and then tried to pull it open with no luck. The lock wasn't broken. I put it back on the door and made sure it was sealed well. We stared at the door, our eyes fixated on the lock, pleading for it not to fall off again. Yet the moment we turned away, it clicked open and fell to the ground again. Panic set in. Dave said he had an idea and rushed over to the boat, grabbing some duct tape and tapping the lock shut, finally keeping it in place. The wind howled around us and the knocks beneath the dock reached a crescendo, urging us to flee. We raced back to the boat, the engine roaring to life as we sped away from the haunted building. As we glanced back, we saw a wave form from just underneath the boathouse. A wave forming from the edge of the coastline, for no apparent reason. Racing for our boat. This can't be real, I thought, as the boat rocked violently from the wave. We crested over it, nearly capsizing before stabilizing. Hearts pounding, we finally made it back to the main dock and secured the boat, the events at the boathouse replaying in our minds. As we turned to walk down the deck across the lake, we saw the lights in the boathouse flicker on, illuminating the structure in the growing darkness. We stood there, frozen in horror. Seconds later, they abruptly turned off again. "You saw that, right?" Dave asked, his voice shaky. I nodded, unable to speak, the events of the night repeating themselves in my head. Without a word, we handed in the keys and left the camp for the summer, the haunted boathouse and its mysteries lingering in our minds. Did you manage to uncover the truth hidden within these tales of the supernatural? The stories we brought you today were filled with unseen entities, mysterious figures, and haunted structures, but only one of these tales is rooted in reality. The first story we shared with you today, A Tale of the Unseen, is the one that is hauntingly true. This tale is based on the infamous Enfield poltergeist case, which took place between 1977 and 1979 in Enfield, England. The Hodgson family reported disturbing paranormal activity, including objects moving around their home, mysterious knocks, and the levitation of one of the daughters. Paranormal investigators and skeptics alike were drawn to the case, making it one of the most well-documented and debated poltergeist cases in history. The voice claiming to be Bill Wilkins, who reportedly died in the house years prior, was indeed part of the real-life events. Skeptics of the Enfield poltergeist pointed out inconsistencies and opportunities for the children to have fabricated or exaggerated events, and some accused Janet and her siblings of playing tricks. Janet herself admitted that they did play tricks occasionally, but insisted that the vast majority of the phenomena they experienced were genuine. The family continued to live in the house, and over time the disturbances seemed to die down. The last recorded incident was in 1979, and by then the paranormal activities had significantly decreased. Peggy Hodgson continued to live in the house until her death in 2003, and she always maintained that the haunting was real. The Enfield poltergeist remains one of the most famous and controversial poltergeist cases in history, with people divided on whether it was a genuine haunting or an elaborate hoax. The story has inspired numerous documentaries, books, and the 2016 horror film The Conjuring 2, which portrays a dramatized version of the events.
Hey, before you go, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, but I wouldn't want to risk that if I were you.